right now we're going to go to a topic that Zach wanted to bring up for our league average, which is kind of an interesting way of doing it. We haven't done league average this way in the past, but here's the picture. But I think it's kind of a fun way to think about the segment, and as we're still experimenting, I think we should give it a go. So, Zach, what is your league average?
Well, I think since Ethan is not here to join us in this discussion, I think it's apropos that we talk about Monta Ellis. We're going to talk about Monta Ellis and whether or not it is league average to have him as a top 2 player on your team. You wrote a very good piece about him. You even asked me in a G-chatty kind of way, because it was on G-chat, whether I would want him on the Timberwolves. And the more I thought about it, yeah, I actually do want him on the Timberwolves, because I think with Rick Adelman and I think with the a right number 1 player, which Kevin Love is not, I think he is an extremely valuable weapon, and I think you really need the right situation for him to put your team above league average as a top 2 guy on the team, but I think it's possible.
Sure. Well, I think, as I said, the thesis of my post was that Monta is super talented, but you have to have everyone else around him has to be, in a way, supporting his flaws. And so the situations in which he can be completely like a plus player, and the things that he can't do, or the things that or his flaws don't, kind of neutralize his impressive stuff that he does otherwise. And, I think that he's a scorer of pretty good efficiency. I mean, he's not like an inefficient scorer. He does take 20 shots a game, though, and if you take 20 shots a game,
that's
you're going to be a 20-plus point scorer. My question for you is what would you give up to get Monta? You wouldn't give up Kevin Love, I assume. Would you give up Derek Williams?
I'd prefer to give up Randolph and Beasley. But I don't know.
No kidding, you would prefer to give up Randolph and Beasley.
I might part with Wayne Ellington. I haven't decided yet. I think
tough decisions.
I'm not sure that Derek Williams is an all-star type player in this league, and Monta Ellis certainly is an all-star type talent. So I think I would give up Derek Williams to get him, just because the team needs a go-to scorer, and he is a go-to scorer. Now, they don't have the personnel to make up for his flaws, which can be poor shot decision, really destroying the flow of an offense, not defending at all. I know his steal numbers are sexy, but his defensive rotations are not. So they don't have the pieces to cover that up. But there's something about having, it's the same Carmelo Anthony argument for me. It's, you need that guy who can be a focus of the offense and at the end of a game. And he's a pretty good scorer at the end of games. He gets a multitude of shots in whatever way he wants, and it's very hard to stay in front of him. And I think having that guy, if you can make up for his flaws, that's really, that's hard to compete with.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like Rubio alongside him as a big guard who can potentially match up with the 2 occasionally if you need to, and Kevin Love as a guy who Ellis can kick out to, who can space the floor, because he's as quick as they come. My problem is that he is really, really bad defensively, and this is a tricky part, because we've argued before that guards are so unimportant in modern NBA defense relative to, they're not 20%, the 20% of the bodies on the floor, they're not 20% of the defense. They may be closer to 10%. But when you have a guy like Ellis who is going to actively make mistakes going for passes and losing assignments on the weak side, that's an issue that really can break down your defense in a way that Stephen Curry, fouling because he's trying to stay in front of someone, doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you would ask me this 2 years ago, I would never want him on the team, because he was just a ridiculous usage rate with a lot of turnovers, and their offensive rating with him on the floor was under 100, which is astounding for me considering he was scoring 25 points a game. But I think he matured a lot in the last year. He seemed to take on, he shared the floor better with Steph Curry. He seemed to be more of a leader. I don't know that you want him as the leader for your team, but if you have another focus that he can play off of, it helps immensely.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Andre Iguodala would be a great pairing for him. So I guess that brings us, we have to make a decision here. For me, he is, as your second best player, unless, barring some miracle circumstance, I think that is a below league average proposition. How about you?
I will go with below league average for now. I think it has to be a very particular situation, but overall, I think it's gonna be hard to win with him as a focus.